Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Women's Maximum Fitness Podcast. So, we are just wrapping up a National Mental Health Awareness Week, and that topic has been in my head a lot. And I ran into a couple of people on Instagram over the last week or so that I had reached out to that I really wanted to have on the podcast to talk about this. And today I have Amanda. I don't want to butcher your last name, so I'm going to have you introduce your last name. But Amanda is a nationally qualified figure competitor, and she did a post in the last week that talked about her struggle with mental illness. And I invited her onto the podcast. She was so willing to come on and talk about it. So I just think this is super important, especially with, competing. I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg, but we're going to talk about it. So first of all, kind of introduce yourself and how are you doing today?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm super excited. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts during cardio and things like that, so I'm really excited to be here. My last name is Almodover. I know it's very hard to swallow. It's fine if you butcher it. But yeah, I've been, bodybuilding and falling in love with the sport. And alongside of that is my battle with, what I've been going through. I guess I'll start from the beginning. It started when I was very young, obviously, younger than I thought I knew what was going on. You kind of don't understand those emotions or those hormones and what's happening on the inside. But in about 11th grade, I'd say 10th or 11th grade, I started to have some of these emotions, come to the surface. I started dabbling with things such as self-harm and eating disorders, which is really when it became most prevalent that I really needed help. And so, hiding it from family and friends, which is what I mentioned in that post, that was like the hardest thing for me, because I feel like with people, just trying to stay quiet about it, but also like not knowing, you need the help, but you don't want to ask for it and you don't know how to ask for it. But at the same time, it's kind of that unknown realization that you do need the help. And I didn't know at the time.
At the time, were you thinking, nobody feels like this, or I shouldn't be feeling like this? Like, what were some of the thoughts that were going on in your head?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the time it was kind of scary because I didn't realize I was sick. I didn't realize, I felt alone and I felt like there was no one else that like felt like I did. But at the same time, I didn't want to ask for help because I didn't realize what I was doing to myself. Like I didn't realize how lethal those coping mechanisms were for me. They were just a way that I was using it to help me. And it wasn't anything that outwardly I was speaking about. So I kind of just, it was behind closed doors. I stayed hushed about it. And it was getting me through from day to day. But I definitely realized, once I came out about it, or, I couldn't hide it anymore. There was times where, obviously I'm going to get real and raw. I remember this one time, my best friend who, God rest his soul, he grabbed my wrist one time and was like, come on, Amanda, let's go. And I was like, ow. And I pulled away, and I was wearing a white sleeve at the time. And it was like in moments like that where like it was apparent and I was like, this is an issue. Like there is something going on that I need to speak about. So it was moments like that where my loved ones were starting to realize before I even realized how dangerous it was really getting.
So you just felt like the cutting that you were doing was, what were some of the thoughts that you were, or what was that you were trying to deal with in your head?
Yeah. So with self-harm and with cutting, it's almost like a rush. I'd say it's almost like a roller coaster of emotions. And it's crazy because scientifically proven things like that are, used to kind of like, I don't know, like, I used it to get through things, but it was that rush that came over me. And also the feeling of I felt so numb that I needed to use this mechanism to feel anything at all.
Okay.
And it's deep and it's dark, but it's real. And there's so many people out there that are going through that are like, I don't know how to feel anything at all because there's so much inside my head that I haven't talked about, that like I was using this to be my outlet, to feel that pain, to feel anything. really.
Was
So
there
it was a sense of control at the same time.
was there like a moment, did something happen to you, if a traumatic event, obviously if that's private and you don't want to talk about it, that's totally fine, but was there something that triggered, or was it just something that they label as mental illness, coupled with depression and that type of thing?
Mhm. I think it was a combination of both. I was raised by a single mom. My dad was, kind of in and out, but not living with me, did his best to come see me. But obviously, I knew that I was different. Like I would go to school and it'd be Father's Day and, everyone had their parents together. And I saw that. And like that was something that has sat with me for a long period of time. So being, a daughter of a divorced family, like that obviously sat with me really rough. Body image has been something that like I think about now and I think back and I'm like, wow, I always had that. Like I remember thinking when I was younger, putting clothes on, going to a birthday party and not liking what I saw, or thinking I was, overweight, or really I had body dysmorphia for as long as I can remember. So things like that obviously sat with me. And as time goes on, I was in high school, like there's bullying that was prevalent in my life. And there was, self-doubt and things that internally I was just like harming myself inside, and then it became external at some point. So it was just a bunch of emotions and things that I didn't speak up about. I didn't want to ask for help. I thought that that was a sign of weakness. And so that was what I was using at the time.
It sounds like that you had some of these seeds, the seeds were planted, and then normally, like if someone had a healthier mindset, or a healthier mentality, a lot of these external factors might not be something that would trigger, but it sounded like because the base was something that you've been struggling with for a long time, now your environment was also contributing as well.
Yeah, I don't think that I had the healthy, underlying coping mechanisms that I truly needed. And so it was like kind of the straws that were breaking the camel's back. I mean, I didn't know how to cope with it. I was using things that were not needed. And thankfully now, I'm able to say that I've been, I haven't had a relapse in years and I'm super proud of that. And now I'm able to use different coping mechanisms, but it's definitely been a journey.
Wow. So what was, when did things get bad? What was the pinnacle? And then, I know from that post you ended up being in treatment. So what happened and what was that like?
Yeah, so it was like I said, it was 10th grade. I was kind of going, I remember it being my basketball season. And I was in a dark place. I was cutting daily. I was covering it up. I was wearing long sleeves when it was too hot to, and it was starting to become obvious that I just wasn't talking to anyone. I would come home, I would go to practice, I would come home, I would go right to my bed. My mom's like, what's going on? I wasn't really talking to anybody, and I was just putting on that brave smile around everyone. So it kept getting worse and worse. I actually told my best friend for a long time, Kayla, and she was getting worried about me. And she genuinely, it took her to tell me, like, if you don't say something, I will, because this is getting bad. It's getting to a point where I'm afraid that something's going to happen.
I want to
So,
interrupt you 1 second and just say that I think that's really important, because a lot of times when we hear about the most tragic events where, someone commits suicide or whatever, there are people who hear warning signs or see warning signs, or, a lot of times you're told, like you were, maybe even if it wasn't like you knew, to confide in some person. And it's afterwards that people think, what could I have done to help this person? And yet at the same time, sometimes when people speak out, it's not taken seriously either. I mean, I don't know if you had that fear as well.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, when I told her, she was just kind of shocked. And like I said, that one situation where my friend Danny like grabbed me, that was also another realization. And I knew I needed the help because it wasn't going away. And it was at the point where it was like, I was almost scared of myself. I would like look in the mirror and I didn't know what I saw anymore because mentally it was just such in a dark place. And so I told her that, and she's like, listen, if you don't say something, I will. So then she's like, why don't you try and go see the school therapist? So I started there. I started talking to her. And then I started telling her what was going on. And she's like, okay, maybe we should try the school psychologist. So then it was another step up. So then I started speaking to her, and I came, I was open about the anorexia. I was starving starving myself at the time. I was hiding the cutting. And she kind of, for a couple weeks, we were kind of, going back and forth about it. She's like, maybe we should ask for further help. I was obviously scared. I didn't want to open up to my friends and family about it. And then it became to a point where the cutting was getting worse. And she kind of was like, okay, this is a period where I truly think that we need to speak to them. So it's almost like she told me, like, this is what's happening. Like, your mom is coming in and we're speaking to her. And you can choose to tell her, or I can choose to tell her.
Yeah.
And so she ended up calling my mom. It was at the school. And I remember this day vividly in high school. And it was after school. My mom came in after work, and, she sat down, and we ended up telling her. I kind of just pulled up my sleeve because I didn't know how to put that in words, and just seeing her face and seeing her look at what I've done was kind of like that broke me, because I was like, as a mom, to see your daughter in that much pain is a lot. Sorry. So yeah, that was the realization. And then there's a hospital called Four Winds Hospital, which is actually for adolescents that were going through a lot of the things that I was going through at the time. So she kind of, opened that up as an option. And my mom was like, listen, anything that we can do to help is going to be huge. So I remember her calling while we were sitting there and them saying, okay, you can bring her tomorrow and we'll do an intake and see how it goes. So that night I went home with my mom. I ended up calling my dad, some close family and friends actually came to the house to see me and to basically say, goodbye and good luck, and we'll see you, when you're better. And I was young at the time. I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was kind of scared in a way. And at that point, my brain was playing it off like, okay, there's nothing, Mom, I don't have to go. I don't need to do this. There's nothing going on. I'll stop. But at that point, it became an addiction. I wasn't going to stop no matter how much I said I was. So then the next morning we ended up going over there, and they did an intake, strip search and all that. It was crazy. These are things I'll always remember going into it. I remember I had a hoodie on and I couldn't wear the drawstring because you can't bring it into it because, God forbid you hurt yourself or someone else. So, I mean, it was a big deal for me. It was something that in a way it was kind of traumatizing, but I think it's because the hammer dropped down for me to realize this is no joke. What you're doing is not okay. So then they ended up obviously admitting me. I was there for a week and a half almost, and I was discharged on Christmas Eve. So every Christmas Eve, that's something that I'm reminded of, wow, thank the Lord that I made it through and I'm free. But while I was in treatment, I did different types of group therapy. They actually put me on medications for depression and anxiety, which was my first time experimenting with them. And so, yeah, I went through treatment. My parents were able to visit me sometimes. Unfortunately, my brother at the time was too young. The cutoff was 21 years old, and he was just under that. So that killed me. I couldn't see my brother, and I had to, have specific times where I would call them. It was almost like a jail in a way, but for really, the recovery of my mind, it's what I needed to do. I needed to be alone. I needed to face what was going on that I kept pushing down. And this is why all those things were coming to surface. So yeah, that's when I started medication. They realized that, okay, she's kind of, the mindset is getting there. She's cooperating in group therapy. She's at a place where she's sort of stable. And so we will, discharge her. And, then I was doing outpatient recovery. So I was still on medications. I tried several different medications. That was hard because as a young adolescent, my hormones were one thing. And then adding, meds on top of that, just finding really what was working for me was tough. But then I did outpatient therapy, and I just kind of kept trying to recover and recover, and slowly but surely I'm at a place now where, thank the Lord, I'm not on medication anymore. I don't go to therapy, although I feel like I should. I feel like everyone needs that. um but yeah, it's kind of been a work in progress, but that was definitely the hardest point in my life, that I realized I really did need help, even though I didn't want it.
So did you have any relapses after you came back out where you went back to, the cutting?
Yeah, I definitely did, which was something that upset me even worse, because I felt like, and this is another thing, like for people out there, just because you come out of treatment doesn't mean you're better. And I think that also killed my family and friends, because they thought, okay, Amanda went in, she came out, she's all right. Like she's good now. We put the Band-Aid on, she's got the coping mechanism, she's going to be okay. And that in my mind is what I thought too. I'm like, everything's fine, I'll be better. And then it was just like those feelings and emotions kept coming back. And regardless of the medication I was on, I still wasn't ready to not use those coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
So I did relapse several times. And each time that I did actually, which was a huge jump, I actually spoke up and told my mom. And deep and dark, she was the one bandaging me up and telling me, like, why did you do this again? Like, I was here. You could have just came and talked to me.
Yeah.
So that was my realization that, like, I actually was opening up about it. I wasn't wearing long sleeves. I was just coming out clean and being like, you know what, I just did that. I'm sorry. So, it was an addiction that I was working to get through. But it's been years since I've relapsed. So I'm super excited about that.
It's amazing. So what were some of the coping mechanisms that they gave you? Because I feel like nothing is going to replace, like you said, you almost got a high from cutting, and now you're like, I don't get to use some sort of euphoria to try to get past something that's like made me low. You have to actually face it. So is that just a strength that has grown over the years, or what are some of the things that you do when a moment happens that might be a trigger?
Yeah, in the hospital, the number one thing they taught us was mindfulness. And so that's to kind of be present, right? Like, it's to not suppress any emotion that's coming to surface. It's to kind of just sit with it. Like, let the suck right now, in this moment, in this time, to realize that's something I want to use, but I'm making the choice now to be mindful and to think about what's going to happen after that. What is the aftermath of this decision? And so that's something that I wasn't doing. It was an impulse, like, oh, you know what? I want to do it. I'm doing it now. And so working through that and kind of being able to sit with the emotion, I started to kind of train my brain to think, what are the steps after that? And after seeing my family and friends and how they reacted to seeing what I was doing, the first thought in my mind was, how is my mom going to think of this? Is she going to be proud that I've used this again? And so, like, thinking of them first instead of thinking the impulse was like a beautiful way for me to step away from it. Because as much as I wanted to do that and resort in that, and it was going to help me for the time being, I had to think of the long term and what was going to happen after I did that.
Yeah, I think that's really great. I think that respect for our parents and fear being a motivator sometimes is, people can say, like, I didn't do certain things when I was younger because I was scared of how my parents would feel. And I remember even times when I disciplined Anna when she was little and she was sorry because she disappointed me. I feel like that's such a healthy relationship that, maybe you had to relearn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's huge. It's like I was young and my brain was thinking, what's going to help now? But as we get older and as we train our brains, like, your life affects so many other people. And so at that time, while I didn't want to be alive, while I did want to rid myself and, put myself out of that, so quote unquote misery that I was enduring, and that's what people think when they want to commit suicide, is like, that for me would affect so many other lives. Like, I in my brain would just think of my mom at my funeral. Like, that would put her in the ground, So it's like, it's so much more than what you think it is at the time. And when you are able to train your brain to think of others and how you're going to affect their lives, it's seriously significant, you know.
I think your story is going to affect a lot of lives.
Thank you. I mean, I was so quiet about it when it happened. Only, you know, close friends and family. And then, you know, Instagram started getting more popular and things like that. And I remember doing like 1 or 2 posts about it. But as I've gotten into bodybuilding and as I've seen the effects, not only after quarantine, but even prior in my years of like growing up, it's so prevalent. There is no one out there that doesn't have anxiety, that doesn't have days where they feel like they don't want to be here, that there's no one that sits here with a smile on their face every single day. And so I am huge in the fact that mental health is real. And I wish in those days when I was feeling what I was feeling, I wish someone told me, you know what, it's okay to not be okay. Like we are not perfect human beings. We are not made to endure absolutely everything that's thrown our way without fault or failure. And that's what God created us to be, right? Like we need to do those things. We have to have those realizations and those dark places to really think to ourselves, wow, I am lucky and I am grateful to be alive. And that's what I am now. And so sharing my story is important for me because I want, you know, even if it touches one soul or one person that is self-harm is like, you know what, I felt that. Like that's very important to me. And it's hard to be real and to be raw, but it's needed because not everyone out there is like that.
I think one of the things that you said is super important for us to understand what our capacity is. And it reminds me of that quote of Mother Teresa that said, what is it like, if you want to make the world a better place, to go home and love your family. And I think that when you can start making that, you know, beautiful in its relationships and healthy, then you are able to, you know, like you said, you're healthy and able to share the story with the rest of the world, because we can't, you're right, nobody has, is anxiety free. We can only hold on to so much of what is going on in the world without it just being a detriment to us, because most of the stuff we can't do anything about. So, yeah, taking care of yourself and realizing who your circle is and who you're affecting, I think is super important before we start, you know, thinking about all the problems in the world and what we're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you look back at, this was 2014, I believe, right? When you were hospitalized. Do you look back and think like, wow, I've come so far. Who is that girl? She was so troubled.
Yeah, it's crazy because I don't think about it often, but when I do, I'm like, oh my goodness, like that actually happened. Because it's like you're such in a dark place that it almost feels like dreamlike. Like I think back and I'm like, that couldn't have been me. Like I really was doing that. I really was going through that. And I know that that pain was prevalent and it was real and it was there. But looking back, like I even found my folder. I remember when we were moving out of my childhood house, like 3 years ago, I found my folder with all of the papers from Four Winds. And I opened it and I was like, it just kind of hit me like, oh my gosh, that happened. Like I went through that. And so to think back and to see that is absolutely incredible. And, you know, I don't realize it until someone else sees my scars, right? Like we try and still suppress it. Like I try to still not think about it. But when you really sit down and you think about it, it's huge. It's huge. And that's why I tell people, like, even in the mornings where you don't want to get out of bed, that's huge. Like people don't realize how hard it can get for most. And so the small accomplishments are so important to take advantage of.
I think I was thinking about too how I feel like with social media, we're kind of, there's a narrative that I see around a lot, and I want to tie it to your faith, because I feel like, and I've even said this, and I'm realizing now that it's not true, that you know, everyone's always like, you are enough. That's like a thing, that you are enough. And I feel like, you know, we know that we're not enough because we need Jesus, right? He's the one who completes us. And I feel like, you know, you said to me earlier how much your faith means to me. I recognize too, at those lowest points, that's when we are most reliant on Jesus, and we recognize that we need him. Was that a crucial part in bringing you out of this?
Absolutely. It's funny because my friend, the one that I spoke about before, Danny, he was huge in his faith. He actually passed 4 years ago. His anniversary just came up, and he passed of leukemia. And I remember, like, throughout my childhood, just how big he was in his faith, and that was really truly what brought him through his life and his whole family. And even still now, they're huge in their faith. And so, kind of, that was my inspiration to be like, wait a minute, you know, God is real, regardless of what I was going through, because I feel like all Christians, we're not perfect. You know, we have those moments where we're like, why? Like, why is this happening? If God is real and all of this is, so why? You know, and the devil tests us. He wants to test us. He wants to take us from the light and from his faith. And so that's really tricky. But I found that, you know, through prayer and just leaning into him when I least wanted to, when I was being tested the most, is when I needed him the most. And so through that, like, my faith has just become a lot stronger. And I actually, yeah, the word enough, you've probably seen in my post, I have tattooed here, because that's something that throughout my life, I've never felt enough. And I know that in God's name, I am enough. With his faith, with his trust, I am enough. And that's hard to sit with and really remind yourself of. But he's definitely been a huge part of my journey, and I could not have done anything without him. And I'm sure you know that.
Yeah, that's where our strength comes from. I can boldly say that's where my strength comes from, because I know it's not mine.
Yeah, it's all glory to God. I mean, in my darkest moments, I just, you know, I don't know. I feel like as Christians, we just hit the floor and we're just like, help, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not a perfect Christian. You know, I miss church on Sundays, something like, no one is perfect. But at the end of the day, I no longer have that fear, because I know that my faith in him is stronger than any of the coping mechanisms that I was using, because I know that didn't come from him, you know?
Yeah. So you talked a little bit, I'm just kind of curious. So you're in New York City right now. Things are a little bit crazy over there.
Yes. Yeah. It's been pretty wild.
You're doing all right. You're doing all right though.
Yeah. I mean, I teach. So it really made an impact on my new class of students. Very different than my first or second year teaching. Emotionally, they need me badly. And I've seen firsthand what this quarantine and pandemic has done to the kids. And so socially and emotionally right now, they need help more than ever. And that's also why it's so important for us to practice mental health and just being open and honest about it. And as parents and as teachers, talking about it. Like, every morning at my morning meeting, I have, you know, a Google slide that has all of the emoji emotions. And I have each one of them, whoever wants to come up and talk about it, you know, what are you feeling today? And like, some of them will come up and point, I'm feeling angry. Okay, do you want to share? If you don't want to share, that's fine. But like, giving them that space to talk about it is so important, because I feel like back in the day, quote unquote, like, it was so taboo to talk about how you're feeling, you know, like, we were supposed to suppress what we were feeling. And that's where all this stems from. That's where all the hiding stems from. And I don't want that for my students. I don't want that for the future generations. So if it takes me to open up and be honest, or give them that platform to say, I'm sad because dad yelled at me this morning. Okay, here's your time to talk about it, you know, like, that's so important for them, even at a young age, because that's where it starts. And really, people don't realize that trauma comes from childhood.
Yeah. And what you were talking about too, you don't know how to express those feelings. And it came out with, you know, self-mutilation and eating disorders, because that's you trying to hide it. It comes out physically. Yeah. Well, you're doing, I have another friend of mine who is a teacher right now too, teaching. What grade are you teaching?
Kindergarten.
Are you guys, do you have to wear masks?
Yeah, we do. And so do they. It's really hard for them. Yeah, we try.
Yeah.
We try our best, but I mean, it's tough.
Full disclosure, I have another friend that teaches, and she's like, my mask is not on my face most of the time. I'm like, good for you. They need to see.
I know. And it's hard because with kindergarten, I mean, we teach letter sounds. So a lot of that is mutilating your mouth.
Yeah.
So, they can't, half the time I can't understand what they're saying. If they have speech problem, I'm like, take your mask down and say it again. I can't hear you. So, it's tough, but we're trying. And I'm just happy they're in school because they need to be.
Yeah.
They need
Yeah.
to have that socialization. They need to have that space to just be kids.
Yeah, that is half the battle right there, was getting them back in school. Obviously, I mean, virtual for kindergarten, I can't think of anything more ridiculous. You know what I mean? Were you doing that during the pandemic?
Yes, I was. I was doing exactly this. I had my easel in my living room. I'm like teaching things. My cat is jumping all over the place. I mean, they had noises in the background. I had students showing up with pajamas, no shirts on. It was a mess. I mean, we tried, but it's like some of the things I'm like, you can't make this up. Like you really, I had one like waving a hot dog in the screen. I'm like, come on, this is ridiculous. It's just like the things you saw. It's, I don't know, the epitome of like the show must go on. Like I'm reading a story and they're just being, they're like, hey, look at my dog. I'm like, can I finish the book, please? But we tried. I mean, we made it through. So
At least I appreciate that you have like some sort of socialization going on. I selfishly like during like the podcast, for me, even this is like a nice little socialization for me, for somebody who doesn't really get out much. So I mean, I feel like selfishly it's like, oh, I'm like, I have friends.
I have virtual friends. What are you talking about? But that's such a beautiful thing about social media. It's like you meet souls you would have never met in your life. And it's crazy because I don't have a lot of friends. I have like 3 real friends in real life. So
Yes.
and it's crazy because those close friends, I tell them everything. They know everything about me. But there's friends virtually that I have that like, if I met them in person, I would cry hugging them because the amount that I've poured out to them or like the connections that we have is just insane. So that's the beautiful part of social media is really meeting people out there that like in normal life you would never have met.
Yeah.
But they change their lives.
And they're like, yes, and they're like lovely people who actually freaking care. It's pretty. I'm like, why don't any of these people live close to me? Like, why?
Why do I have to take a plane to get to them? It's so frustrating.
Right? It's one of those things, like if I had so much money, I would just be like, once a year we're all getting together.
Yeah, it would be awesome. And that's the thing with bodybuilding is like finding people out there like you, and I feel like as females it's so hard. Like there's no one in my town that bodybuilds. There's like one kid that competes, and it's like I sometimes feel, and bodybuilding is a sport that you feel alone sometimes because no one lives the life that you do. But like that's where it's like, oh, I'll just DM my friend who's also who's a pro, and I'll just talk to her about it. Like she understands what I'm going through, so it's nice to have that.
So tell me a little bit how you transitioned into bodybuilding, and how has that been like? Has it been therapeutic? Has it been triggering? What is that? How does that help you or hurt you with this recovery process?
Yeah. So after I got out of the hospital, I went back to playing sports, obviously. I played soccer, softball, and basketball in high school. So I played my senior year. And then I knew that I wanted to continue to play sports in college. So I ended up playing 4 years of college softball, which I absolutely loved. And then in my junior year of college softball, I was kind of like, wait a minute, the end is coming. Like I'm going to have to take my cleats off and take my jersey off and not be an athlete anymore. And mentally, I could not handle that because that's the only thing that really got me through what I was going through was playing sports. It was my life and it forever will be. So I got into bodybuilding through a friend. And I kind of started training from there, and therapeutically, it saved me. And it's crazy. I actually have like a dumbbell tattooed here because I'm like, I swear, besides my friends and family, sports, being an athlete, and also just bodybuilding and the therapy of iron saved my life. It was like the one thing no one could take away from me. Yeah. Like no one could tell me, no, you can't go to the gym and go train. Like that's where I put my pain in. Yeah. And so in the beginning, I didn't use it to shape myself and to be aesthetic. I was actually into powerlifting from the start. I loved being strong. I loved picking up weights that no one else was. And so mentally, that's kind of what was like getting me through it. And then, yeah, that kind of like became my coping mechanism. It became my life. And then after graduating from college and putting the cleats away, I picked up the heels and I started bodybuilding. So it's definitely been something that has helped me mentally. But at the same time, bodybuilding does bring a lot of body dysmorphia. And a lot of those things do come to surface. However, it's a more healthy way to kind of get through it. So like the self-inflicted pain is in training now, and it's okay to have that, you know, so it's kind of like trading one for the other, but so much more healthy in this way.
Do you so I was wondering then what happened with you guys during the pandemic? Because I was thinking about when you were talking about how for me it was really difficult when we couldn't have gyms, and I did have several breakdowns during that time because I'm like, I never imagined the gym being taken away from me, and that has been, you know, sort of my coping mechanism as well with all this stuff. So I was like, yeah, I struggled hard.
Mm-hmm. I think we all did. I mean, I think the world of bodybuilding took a hit different than anyone else in the world, right? Like that becomes a form of your identity, you know, that becomes a part of your routine. And as bodybuilders, if my routine is not the same every single day, this is just the way I'm wired, I lose my mind. So you take away my job, all right, you know, it's kind of a part of my routine. You take away the gym, I'm losing my mind. Right. So like automatically, as soon as the gym shut down, my coach texted me, he's like, listen, we're going to figure out a way. Don't freak out. Like, I just feel like bodybuilders around the world, we took a mental hit. Cause we're like, if this is like life, what is happening? Like, that's when you could take everything else away. I'd be like, all right, but you take away the gym, like the gym is closed. Something is happening here.
It's so crazy what we think of as freedom. And I think there was a couple of times I literally I lost my shit because I was like, I cannot drive to the gym right now. I can't drive to the gym right now. Like, what is this world we're living in? It's so crazy.
It's crazy. Like, I mean, we found a way, right? Like everyone around the world, like we all were doing stupid things, like trying to squat our couch. Like we were all like absolutely ridiculous, but it's crazy. Like you're really iron addicts. Like I was sneaking into, luckily, thankfully, you know, with God and the way that he was able to pan things out.
He knows.
He knows that I would kill someone. But there was a gym that actually was sneaking into and able to train. I was actually in a prep at that time. So that me and my coach were kind of like, are we going to do this? And me in my mind, I'm like, we're going to do this. Like, we're going to do it. We're going to find a way. And so I was continuing to train at that gym. But it's crazy. Like, I can't wait to tell my kids one day, like, yeah, I was sneaking into the gym. Like, he literally would tell us wear normal clothes coming in and then change when you get here so that on the outskirts, it doesn't look like you're training. Like that is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I know. I thought, like, what is this? Like, it made me think of, like during the Cold War when people were like inside and there was like we had paper they papered the windows of the gym so nobody could tell that people were in the gym. And then one of them, like some Karen called and complained about it. And it was just like, and every time I went in the gym, there was maybe 2 people, 3 people in it. So it's not like,
and it's at your own risk. So people mind your business, please. It's I'm like, unless you want to die, don't speak up about me training. Like, just mind your business, keep going. But yeah, so thankfully I had that. And then I was, doing garage lifts when it wasn't open, doing sprints outside, doing pull-ups on monkey bars at parks, like
I did that
too. Right? Like we just were ridiculous, absolute animals at the time. Like it's no joke. But we found a way. I ended up
I was going to say, I think I still have a little bit of trauma about it. My daughter will tease me because we live in an apartment complex, and whenever like people will put like stuff when they're moving like out and be like free or whatever. And I always like the other, like just, it was like 2 days ago, they put up these like step stools and I was like, oh, those are perfect height for step downs. And Anna's like, stop taking other people's stuff. I was like, no, these are great. Like they're great for step downs. They're the perfect height.
Yes. I mean, it's definitely made us think of like, because I mean, although knock on wood, I feel like that'll hopefully never happen again. But like in our minds, we have PTSD. So now I like see a broomstick and I'm like, oh my God, maybe I should buy that, because if that happens again, I can just connect gallons on each side and like do walking lunges in the street. Like it's crazy. But I mean, I don't know if you listen to Steve Furtick. He's
Yes.
yes, love him.
Yeah.
He's a great pastor for Elevation Church, and he actually did a sermon and was talking about how like we have no control over anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's genuinely what we learned, like as bodybuilders and as people in the fitness world, like that can be taken away too.
Yeah.
And so for anyone going to the gym and thinking like, you know, oh, I don't want to do this workout, like I'm so tired, like we didn't realize how privileged we truly were. And so like going back into it, I feel like everyone was like, oh my God, I'll never take another training session for granted. I'll never take another 30 minutes of cardio for granted, because at the time we thought we lost that for God only knows how long.
Yeah.
So it definitely was a nice realization, but it was a hard time.
Like I was just gonna like sometimes I write down like little stuff in my notes and I'll think, oh, I'll do an Instagram post and I'll write this out or whatever, something that triggers. And I was thinking about, because like yesterday, I think I was real tired. I went into the gym and this kid who is like behind the desk, he's like, I said, how are you? He's like, I don't want to be here. I was like, yeah, me either. He goes, whatever. And I thought it was really funny because it was like, yeah, that's where this is mostly a discipline, because I do love it and I love how I feel afterwards. But I want to say, I bet you 60% of the time I don't want to do my workout. Like,
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, people always, I put like question boxes up, and the number one question I always get, and I feel like everyone always asks, is like, how do you stay motivated?
Yep.
You don't. You don't. If I did things only when I was motivated, I would not look the way I do. I would not have achieved all of what I have. It doesn't work that way. You don't do it because you're motivated 90% of the time. Sometimes I go through these slumps where I don't want to train at all. Like the hardest and the heaviest thing in the gym is the front door sometimes, because you're just like, get in there. But once you get in there, like obviously you can, get yourself moving and whatever. But no, if you did things only when you're motivated, you would not be a very successful human being. So at the end of the day, you have to lean into discipline, and the long term. What do I truly want at the end of this?
Yes. And the critical thinking of like what you were talking about before. What are the repercussions of this, good or bad? What follows this action? You have to think, you have to be, it's hard, right? Because you got to be present, but you also have to be thinking about what your goals are and your purpose are. And it is beyond this 1 hour adds up to, what my goal is. So, oh my goodness.
It's crazy because that one, while I was in the hospital, I was like, oh, this is stupid, mindfulness, whatever. Now I'm like, if I never learned that, I don't know where I would be. Because being mindful and understanding that there is always something that's going to happen after an action you make or a decision that you make. Like every single time I think about doing something, even if it's training, I'm like, even in the middle of a set, I don't want to do my fourth set. Like, I don't want to do a fourth working set. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm sweating. My back's killing me. I think to myself, are you going to be proud when you walk away from this machine? When you sit down and you lie your head down at night, did you check every single box? Or are you going to regret the fact that you didn't? So that's mindfulness right there. Like that's thinking in the moment about the later. How am I going to feel? How is this going to affect who I am and how successful I can be? So being mindful is so important. And I'm thankful to have learned that lesson.
I love that. Oh, this is such a great message. So how are you doing now? Do you feel like you are, probably still in recovery, but you're removed from the worst, you think? Yeah.
I don't use those mechanisms anymore, and I'm super proud of them. I think bodybuilding has been truly a lifesaver for me, because I can't truly have an eating disorder the way that I would aspire to, because I have a greater goal, right? Like I can't sit here in my off season, I can't starve myself, because if I do that, I am not going to be successful at what I want to be successful at. I have to eat all the foods, you know, I have to have a healthy body, because if I don't, mentally it'll plummet. So I think I'm in a space now where obviously I don't think anyone has ever recovered. I don't think that that trauma ever goes away. I don't think that those emotions are ever going to be like, oh, you know, they're fine, I went through them and they're over, because they're not. But when they do come back, I'm able to think to myself, what can I do right now that's healthy that I can use to get through it? And usually the first answer is go to the gym, right? Like do some cardio, get moving, because sitting in your bed, although you think you want to, is probably the worst thing you could possibly do. So yeah, I mean, still working through those emotions, but I've worked on also being very open and honest about it. Reaching out for help and just speaking about it is so important, because those are things that I never used to do. And although you think it feels better in the time, it's actually worse for you. So I think that, you know, using different mechanisms that are healthier is really important. And I'm still working through some of the things that I've gone through, but I am blessed and all glory to God that I'm not in that place where I was. And I pray and I know and I understand that I'll never be back there. And that in itself is a huge win.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's refreshing to hear that you think about consequences to your behavior. I think that's really something that I struggle with. And not me personally, I struggle with seeing that in our society right now. People don't think about or want to accept the consequences to their behavior. And they only think about right now, whether it's, you know, trolls on social media, like saying stuff, you know, whatever it is. It's just like, everything that we do matters. And
Yeah. I mean, the impact of every single action is like a domino effect. And it can be a good domino effect, or it can be very bad and lethal. And so I think that a lot of people need to like realize how far things really can take a person. And as someone who, I guess you could say, I'm kind of more sensitive to a lot of like, even a simple comment as like, oh, you gained a little weight, that can go very far depending on who you're telling.
Yeah.
You can be telling someone, and even, you know, I was speaking to my friend Meg, who obviously is literally the best in the world, shout out to her, but she gets me through a lot of what I'm going through sometimes. But she always tells me, like, when you compliment how someone looks on the outside, you truly shouldn't, because you never know what they're doing to attain that look. How do you know that that girl didn't starve herself for the past 3 days and now you're telling her, oh, you look great?
Yeah.
You know, like you really truly never know what you're saying to people. So I think as someone who has gone through that, I am so sensitive and aware of what I say to other people, because I know the impact that it can have when it's coming from someone else.
Yeah.
So I think that people need to be more aware of that. Not to be more sensitive, but to just be more aware of the words that they're using or the way that they're saying things.
Well, and you know, especially with something like social media, a lot of these women, you know, it's like your one troll comment might be one of like 20 that she got today. So maybe if it was one person, they could dismiss it, but it's the repetition and the constant, like you said, you're just feeding this, you know, this type of environment. So, I mean, it is tough because especially with bodybuilding, you know, you work hard on your body, you want to display these pictures or, you know, things that you're doing. And it's tough because a lot of times people don't like recognize the effort. They just want to, like you said, compliment, you know, the visual or whatever. So, and it's,
I feel like a lot of times it's a superficial. It's the like, wow, you look good. Never mind the training or the hard, you know,
right,
that you've sacrificed to put in that work. But it's always like instant gratification, you know? So people need to realize it's so much more than that. And like, it's not just the body. And that's what I try to remind myself, like, even mentally, sometimes, even like right now, I'm in my off season. Like sometimes I don't want to post because I'm not as lean and shredded as I was. And then I have to like reel it back and think to myself, like, number one, I'm still the same person on the inside, regardless of what is on the outside. Number two, I'm still just as valuable. just because I don't have shredded lines and like my face isn't sunken in, like I'm still just as important and I'm still am enough. So like trying to relay that to other people that I know feel the same way is like, you're still just as important.
Yeah.
And what you have to say still matters regardless of the lines that your body is showing. Like I have to remind myself a lot of times, especially in this sport, that I'm more than a body.
Yeah.
Like I am a mind, I am a soul, and I have so much more to offer in this world than what you see on the outside.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you follow Allie Stuckey at all. She has a podcast called Relatable. It's awesome. But she said one time, she's like, your body is the least important thing about you. You know, that you have so much more than your
yeah.
physique. It is. And even in a you know, a sport where that's what we work for. To me, what drew me to the sport in the first place was the strength that I feel and the betterment that trickled down into the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So I love that the discipline and the strength and, you know, the muscle growth is just a side effect of it all.
Yeah. That's what people are like, how did you get into it? And I was like, honestly, I was mentally sick. I needed something, I needed a therapy, and that was it. And it always will be it, regardless of what I look like on the outside. I will always be a bodybuilder at heart because it's what got me through the darkest moments. So I feel like a lot of times, even with social media, we kind of get into that hole and sometimes to think like what we look like matters most above all else. And it's truly not, you know? So it's important to just remember that, like, it's how you make other people feel. And people always say, like, what is your purpose, right? Like, why did God put you on this earth? And I believe mine is I want to have a long lasting effect on someone far beyond my presence in the room. And my body will never be the purpose of that. You know, maybe it's my journey and like how it's inspiring and what I've gone through with mental health and all that. But how shredded I was will never matter when you're in the ground. And it's hard to put it like that, but it truly is the reality of it. Like what you look like will never be your sole purpose on this earth. It's what it has taught you about life and discipline. So
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, you're making me cry. So
okay, I cried before.
oh, I love that you're taking care of our children too.
I'm trying. Some days it's messier than others. No, I really do try. I mean, I know what the depths of hell have felt like. And so if that means me giving them an extra positive comment a day, or like some days they'll just look at me and I can tell they're overstimulated and they're tired and they're teary-eyed and you know what, that's it. Put the paper to the side. We're not doing anything else today. Let's do some yoga. Lay on the floor. Let's do some breathing. Like everyone needs that. And people in this world, especially in this day and age, we want to go, go, go. We want to keep going. Like we're fine. Everything's fine. But it's not, because if you're not mentally sane or if you're not mentally healed, nothing on the outside matters because it erodes from the inside out. So it's important to take care of that first. And that's something that I've learned the hard way. But if it takes me coming out and being honest to help one person to do it the right way the first time, then that's important to me.
Sounds like through it all too, the beautiful thing about these struggles, it really allows us to empathize with other people. You have this awareness, like you said, you notice with kids, you probably connect with people pretty easily when you meet them. Like I feel like yeah, people that have gone through stuff like that tend to connect with other people and understand when somebody in front of you is in pain as well.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing. It's almost like a superpower in a way. Like I know when someone is feeling anxious. I can look at one of my kids or one of my, like anybody, and I can notice their nervous tics. I can notice what sets them off, what triggers them, because I've studied it for so long in myself. And so to see that in other people, it's really, I think that's honestly a gift that God has placed in many people throughout the world. Is like, it takes that one person to look at you and say, you know, I always say, when someone asks you if you're okay, you're never going to say, oh no, I'm not feeling okay. Like if you're, oh, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. No one's ever listening to your response. It's just a way that you're greeting someone. But it takes that one person to be like, no, you're not. I can see it in your face.
Yeah.
And then like 9 times out of 10, that person will be like, well, 1, how did you know that? And 2, they're able to kind of break down those walls. And I've had like random people just like cry in my arms and tell me what's going on because I'm the one person that noticed it, you know? And I always say like pain, people who have gone through pain can see pain. Like they see right through you.
Yeah.
I see right through someone who's saying I'm okay when they're not.
Yeah.
So that's important.
And you know, those people are looking for someone to be a beacon that they can unload to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They were waiting for that moment for somebody to come along who they knew they could trust and share their, you know, whatever their secret or whatever it is. Yeah. I've had that a lot already. I mean, with the podcast as well. I joke about it sometimes, but I feel like there's a lot of there would have been some really great podcasts after the podcast, but that's all in here and it's all, you know, it's all safe. But yeah, I mean, people share some amazing, you know, secrets that you have to feel privileged to know that you were the person they were able to speak this to and they needed to, and probably to be able to move on with, you know, their day.
Feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, like how many times do you just tell a stranger your deepest, darkest thoughts? So I think that you have a gift in that, like that you're just able to be, people are able to be honest and open with you. And that's something that's super beautiful. And that's a gift in itself.
Yeah. Well, we're all connected, right? I feel like we're all connected and those walls just need to come down. So when people are available for someone to be able to share and, you know, I feel like it's like you can't always help somebody, but sometimes they just need to let everything out.
To unload. Yeah.
So, I want to emphasize too, I think it's really important that if anyone is having any type of anything that is relatable to what we're talked about today, I would say seeking counseling of some sort would probably be the number one, or tell a friend who can help you get to counseling, a friend, a parent, something like that, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as much as you feel like you don't want to talk about it, talking about it is the number one step, because when you put something out there in words, it's coming out of your body. And so when it leaves you and goes elsewhere, God will take it. But if it's on the inside, you know, it's really hard to get that help.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be scary to try to let go of our, you know, our coping mechanisms, you know, but healing is, you know, the goal. And it goes back to what you said too, thinking about beyond our consequences, and really what you're attempting to do with these coping mechanisms that are unhealthy is heal. And that's not the right way to heal. So you have to learn the right way to heal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So great. So, well, I want to say thank you, Amanda. You're so articulate. I'm so happy that you shared this beautifully, and I'm so happy that you're teaching our children. Stay strong. Hopefully, so mask mandates will be, I don't know, hopefully they'll be over in a year. That would be very good.
That would be awesome. Then my kids wouldn't have to be wearing their mask like at their chin, and I have to yell at them like, pull it up, it falls back down. I'm like, ugh.
I hope there's policing going on. Like, is anybody really noticing if like?
No, not really. I mean, I try my best, but there's some days I'm just like, you know what? I'm not, it's okay. Yeah. It just is what it is. But
well, I mean, all of the data shows that the masks are not doing anything to help the children. So, you know, not to stir in a whole bunch of controversy, but I mean, with the kids, they don't wear them correctly. They get wet really fast. It's like, it's not.
The amount of times I have to change their mask, they're like, Miss A, my mask is wet. I'm like, here we go again. Like it's a mess. It's hard for them. It's not easy. And wearing them in itself is exhausting for them. You know, it's a whole thing that they have to remember to do and learn at the same time. So let's hope that it goes away with time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, do you have time you want to do some fun questions?
Sure. Yeah, I have time.
Okay, so this is my new favorite question. So I used to ask people what their music style was, but now I'm thinking, if you had a theme song when you walked into a room that played, what would it be?
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh man, I don't know, but in college my walk-up song was Gasolina. And I just feel like the energy of that song is just, it's just like this super Spanish song, and it's just super loud and obnoxious, and I feel like that would just be the entrance. I
So
guess all that
awesome.
comes to my head.
So like I love like the Latin style of music, and I like, do you know the song I think it's called Fiero? It's like a club song. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you, but I like, even watching the Olympia yesterday, they had like the background music, and I was just like, I need the soundtrack to the Olympia, because this music, like, you cannot be,
You
it's
can't
like,
say
yeah,
you're lying if you weren't watching the Olympia last night, like
no, it
man.
was it was awesome. I was like, I love this music. I just love it so much. So I'll have to look up what that song is. I'm sure that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Um, so you talked a little bit about your favorite thing about social media. So what is your, what's your favorite and your least favorite thing about social media?
I think my favorite thing is connecting to people that are like me. I don't think that I would ever have, like, I don't know, I don't think it would be as comfortable being a bodybuilder, being that I wouldn't know, like I wouldn't be able to reach out to other figure girls, like, did you experience this in your prep? Are you feeling this? Is this something that happened to you? And kind of just that safety and that comfort of being able to relate to other people like me. Because my friends are like not like me. So and then I think my worst is, I guess, like it can be mentally exhausting.
Yeah.
Like I have tried my hardest to be very like relevant lately and like making posts, and like the people that do that daily, that is exhausting.
Yeah.
Like just to put yourself out there constantly, just to make the content. And like even for me, like people laugh at me because I'll sit there and think about a caption for like 20 hours and then I end up just like doing an emoji. Like why did I sit there and think about, like, my best captions come from me just typing it and hitting share.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, then I just sit on it and think about it. So I guess like the self-critique and the judgment that you put on yourself prior to even posting anything at all
Yeah.
is kind of what I hate about it. Like I wish I could just be like, post, I don't care. You know, I liked it, so I posted it.
Right.
But
You think
yeah.
about these like the quote unquote influencers who are like trying to put out something relevant every day. I was just like, my life is not relevant every day. Like I don't have like stuff, That's why if I think of something, I'm like, oh, this would be a good topic. Then I'll like maybe write something out in my notes. And then, I mean, a lot of times though, it just sits there because I'm like,
Yeah.
how do I put this with a selfie?
Yes. Yeah. It's like it's honestly, I feel like Instagram for writers, like I love writing. I could write my whole, if I wasn't a teacher, I'd be a journalist or something like that, because writing has always been my outlet. But like I feel like it's become a blog. Like forget what the picture says. I just want to read this long caption that you're like writing that's so deep. So I feel like it's become that. But it's funny because it's like you're talking about the deepest, darkest thing, and it's like a like selfie. Like how do you pair that? Like how do you keep that relevant and important? I don't know.
Right. You have to do the selfie to be the attention grabber. Because I mean, it sucks because I know people who use Canva or they use words and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, but the picture is basically reiterating what you are saying in the caption. And I know it doesn't get as many views or whatever, So yeah, it's kind of a weird, it's a weird combination of the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a reader as well. When people are, it's like, oh, this is relevant, not that I don't like beautiful pictures,
Yeah.
but so I think you spoke about, do you have siblings? Where are you in the birth order?
I do. I have an older brother who's 26, and he's pretty awesome. And then I have a younger half brother who is in 3rd grade.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm right in the middle, kind of in the middle, but not really, because I don't live with my younger brother.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm in the middle.
Okay.
But yeah, they're awesome. I am my younger brother's world, and then my older brother is my world. So it kind of just connects, which is nice.
and good support for you as well when you remember going through this journey again about how you have people that are relying on you just to be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is like a gym pet peeve, your biggest gym pet peeve?
Oh man. This is hard. There's so many things you walk in and you're just like, come on. I don't know. I guess the people that like, I mean, I guess in the gym that I go to now, like I gym hop often. Like I don't stay in one place too long. That's just who I am. I'm like a free gypsy spirit that doesn't like to be in one place. Like when people start to know me, I leave because I'm just like, I'm not here to talk. I'm not here to have conversation. So like once my name goes around, I'm like, okay, see ya, putting the hoodie on so no one notices who I am. But I guess in the new gym that I'm at now is like, what do people do with the dumbbells? Like there's one dumbbell section and they just rob them. Like, are you putting them in your book bag? Because I don't see you training with them. So I'm confused. So I guess that's like the biggest thing is like taking up equipment that you're genuinely not using, or you're like, let me take those 20s and walk them over so I can sit on my phone and tell you that I have 4 sets left, but I'm not doing absolutely anything. So it's just like, I guess when things are not accessible, I get frustrated because I'm like in there and I'm like on the clock.
Yeah.
I don't like to lollygag. So not having access to what I want when I want it is like, you know.
I just realized the other day, because I feel like my pet peeves changed. So I just want to share this. Mine is when people use the bench for their stuff. When there's like no benches, because I've literally been like, are you using this? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, to set your dumbbells on, like
for your bag or
the dumbbells on the floor, and then I can use the bench. See how that works? Like,
I know.
Yeah.
I don't understand that because I am so cautious of other people's space. Like even where I put my water is so strategic that like it is not in the way of anyone. Because
Right.
I know it would piss me off.
Right.
But people don't think of that. So it's just like, wow. No sense of like other human beings.
Yeah.
That is a pet peeve.
It goes back to the whole theme of the podcast of your actions.
Yes. Yes, like your air boxing is getting in the way of the lat pull down. Like go air box somewhere else. You're not thinking about anyone else.
Like at a boxing gym.
Yeah, right.
We could go on about this. What about the people that like lift right in front of the dumbbell rack? You're like, yeah, step away.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, excuse me, I was gonna grab those.
It's the worst. Here's the worst. And I know all females out there are like, I hate this. How do you park yourself on a bench?
Oh, all right, we just had a heart attack because my computer died, and I thought, oh my word, Amanda's amazing story was gonna get lost forever. But yeah, word to the wise: if your computer crashes, Zoom will save your recorded file.
I had hope. I was like, in this day and age, if it doesn't save like Google Docs saves, then I don't know.
Yeah. Or I was like, there's got to be a way to recover if, like you just have to dig deep enough. But I know, this is what we got for complaining about gym bros.
I know. It was so funny too, because it cut off and I was like going all in about gym bros. I was like, maybe God's telling me I need to be nice. Like we were just ripping them and then it cut off and I was like, karma.
Oh my gosh. I know, but I want you to finish. I don't remember what it was.
Oh, we were talking about when they park the bench in front of the dumbbells. Yeah. And then you have to awkwardly lean over to get them.
Yeah.
And you don't want your butt in their face, and they're totally just sitting there like chilling, waiting for it to happen. So I like go in backwards and like grab them all awkwardly. Like I'm just like, come on, you know what? Forget it. I'll use a bench or something.
It's so bad. There's a lot at the gym. I know, I think way back at the very beginning, like episode 7, I did like some gym etiquette stuff. If I do a podcast, like usually it's tough because I don't want to ever discourage somebody, but I always like, it's always around the new year that I think of this stuff because you just see people doing crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't affect me, it's totally fine. But I, like you, you know, like even if you're asking somebody like how many sets, like I know how many sets I have left because I have a plan, you know.
The worst is like one or I don't know, like one or two. What do you mean you don't know? What do you mean? Do you even know how many you've done? I'm just it's a lot.
I think a lot of people though, they just go in like it's to exercise, you know what I mean? So they don't really have a plan, but man, I get a lot of anxiety if I don't have a plan or I can't follow my exercises in order. I'm like
It
this
throws you off.
like these are going to mess up my PRs. Like I'm going to get a PR on something, but it was because it was my second exercise instead of my third.
Right. Or you're going to fatigue yourself before hitting your main movement. Like it's crazy because we're so structured into a T. So when there's someone that's not, you're like, what do you mean? You know, because it's like I daydreamed about this before I even came here today. So it's like I envisioned it on my way here. How do you not know how many sets you have left? It's just crazy, but that's just the way our brains function so differently.
Yeah, it is. And then there was a time where I just went into the gym and I was like, I'm going to work out for 3 hours. You know, I'm just going to do everything. How did you get on the right path with bodybuilding? Because I think most people kind of fumble around a little bit before they find their groove. Did you have a coach or something that was helping you?
When I first started, no. I started my own prep by myself, and I look back and I'm like, what was I doing? Because I was having my Lenny and Larry cookies, thinking that like, oh, it fits my macros, and doing my fitness plan, and thinking I was like healthy when I totally wasn't. Right? Like we all start somewhere. And then I met a friend at the gym who had a coach, who's still my coach now. And I picked him up for like the last month of my prep. And like basically at the beginning, he told me, he's like, I'm not going to really be able to change much, but I can try and see where it is. And I was like, I'm dead set on doing this show, which I'm glad I did, because I like learned, and like that picture from that show is just hilarious now to look back on. And I'm like, oh wow, I thought I knew what I was doing. But yeah, I picked Joe Libertello up then, and he's been my coach ever since. So kind of just, we've grown together, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So luckily, I've had someone who I've really hit it off with. But
yeah,
I know that for many people, it's hard to find a coach that you really work well with, and they jump from coach to coach over time. So
yeah. I think a lot of times too, I mean, people don't know what to expect. And it sucks because I know a lot of people who've done like podcasts and stuff about what to expect with a coach. But I feel like most people, you almost like have to be with a coach before you understand the value of a coach to understand the value of those podcasts. It's very like people just, they don't want to invest because they don't know at all what they're investing into. And it's really hard to know what you're investing into until you invest.
yeah, it really is. I mean, people are like, oh my God, what? Like that much money a month to pay for a person? And I'm like, no, you don't get it. It's paying for my sanity, because I know that I have to check into someone, and it's just like basically you're paying for a whole routine and a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And people will go out and splurge and spend $200 on a vacation or on like a weekend away or drinks. And think about how much you spend on a dinner. You spend 100+ on a dinner when you're out with a friend drinking.
Yeah.
So you mean to tell me you can't put that in for a month? Like, that's why I laugh when people say I don't have enough for a gym membership. I'm like, $30, you spend that on your own meal when you go out once with a friend, So it's just, at that point, it's just priority.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. I always encourage people to change their verbiage about that too, because you're absolutely right. You don't ever not have the time or the money for something. It's just not a priority, and that's totally fine. But don't put it on there like you don't have the time or the money to do something. You just not a priority to work toward. Yeah.
That's always, oh, I don't have the time. Really? It's crazy because it's like I didn't have the time either, but at 4 a.m. I was getting up and meal prepping, and then doing fasted cardio, and then teaching tiny humans, and then doing more cardio and training. So it's like,
yeah,
if you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen, regardless of how much money and time you have.
Yeah. Well, and being honest, like people ask me too if I'll compete again, and I'm like, I don't want to. There's your honest.
Right. 100%. And I could totally see that as someone who is not finished competing. I can totally see that other end, because bodybuilding is not forever. Like I will not always want to compete and step on stage and go through the vigorous preps and things like that. And if you don't take those breaks in between, which is what I'm realizing now, if you don't take those breaks, you will not be able to go 100% and you will lose that love for the sport. So it's important that you're taking those huge breaks and living life a little bit in between, even though my living life looks different than everyone else's. Trying my best to find that quote unquote balance is really important. Because if not, you'll burn out really early and then you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's seasons. I'm not saying I will never compete, but at this point, I don't have, it's not a priority. Competing is not a priority. Bodybuilding, yes, it is a priority. And going to the gym and doing that is, yeah, I don't have room for it on my plate at this point. And that's, that's okay. It's the seasons of life. That's what carries you through. And you, like we talked about before, you can only have so many things in your life at one point, or you're going to spread yourself too thin. And then you're not even able to give 100% to those, things that you are prioritizing. So
yeah, 100%.
Do you, baby animals or baby humans?
Baby humans. I love babies. That's an easy question. I love babies. I have a problem. I go to the mall and I'm like baby shopping and like distract the mom so I can steal the child.
I always say that, like, there's going to be an Amber Alert. Like,
it was me.
Steal your, yes. We, one of my clients had a baby, she had a baby shower, and Anna and I were going nuts with like the little shoes and stuff. I just, they're like so not practical, but they're so cute. You're just like,
I was just talking about that yesterday. I'm like, miniature anything is adorable. I literally can't take it. My boyfriend literally ordered like a Domino's pizza and it's like a personal mini. And I'm like, that box is so cute. Like, I just want to keep it. Anything small is just cute. I love it.
It's a marketing tactic, probably for women, especially the nurturing type that are like, yeah. Yeah, babies are awesome. I love baby animals though too. I mean, yeah, who doesn't, right? Heels or sneakers? What do you prefer?
Sneakers all day, every day.
Do you hate the heels for figure?
Oh, I hate them. It's so funny because when I first started with bodybuilding and obviously figure wears heels, I started out in figure. My friend was like, I don't know how we're gonna get you out of this soldier walk, but we're gonna try. Because I looked ridiculous. I looked like a baby gorilla trying to walk in them. And like, thankfully now I'm kind of more feminine in it, but it took some time. So sneakers all the way.
It's almost like, I don't know if there's like some sort of vendetta with the IFBB, because they're like, this is a great category, but
yes,
putting you in stripper heels, 5 inches, can you do it?
It's insane. I literally get off stage and my heels are off within 0.2 seconds of me getting off. I'm like at the bottom of the stairs, like, hold on, let me take them off. It's crazy. But I mean, there is something empowering about wearing them too, though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm down for a good night out and just wearing heels, it just gives you that energy.
Yeah.
You're
like, you literally can do anything if you can good night and
it's so true though. Like, whenever you're feeling sad, just go out, put some lipstick on and some heels, and it's just fine. It's just like a band-aid. It just is empowering.
Secret coping mechanism right there.
There you go. A healthy one.
Yes. Would you rather hike a mountain or swim in an oasis?
Ooh. I'm going to say hike. Because I'm scared of the depths of the ocean. I don't know what lies there. And it just freaks me out. Like, if there's sharks, nope. Like, I'm not a beach person. Because how do you know what's in that water? You just don't.
Yeah.
Like, if I can see through it, I'm not swimming in it. So don't ask me to. So I'm definitely going to say the hike. Although you can still be eaten by bears, but it's whatever. I run fast, so. I don't swim as fast as I run. So that's it.
It's funny. You're not the first to mention that about Melissa Tyke was talking about that with dark water. She did a triathlon and she's like, I thought I was going to die because it was like a dark lake and I'm getting hit by all these bodies because we're all like swimming like a bunch of sardines across.
There's like that certain age where like the beach is no longer fun because you know that like what is in there, what's in the dark pond.
Yeah. Yeah, like if I was in Florida, I mean, all I think about there, like I've been to Florida and I just think like within 2 feet of any water is a gator that can kill you.
Yep.
And you can't see it until you're close enough for it to kill you.
Public service announcement, don't go swimming. Stay on land.
I feel like the worst way to die too. Teared apart. That's a word. Teared apart by gators.
For real. It's scary.
What's your favorite cheat meal?
I like steak, but even though that's not really a cheat meal, but that's just kind of been the kick.
Healthy.
But I love sushi and burger and fries. I'm super simple.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm the least picky of all. Like you could give me anything and I'd probably be smiling eating it. So anything besides rice cakes and tilapia is great.
Yeah. Even during prep though, you're like food. It's good. It's all good.
Yes. That's the good thing about bodybuilding is like you'll never be a picky eater because you're just thankful for everything. Like a rice cake and jelly is like cake. So
isn't it funny when you see people on prep and that stuff, they're like, this is what I made. And it's like, you literally put sugar-free syrup on your eggs. You're calling that a pancake? That's disgusting.
The average people are like, you are gross. And I'm like, this is actually the best thing I've ever tasted. Like dipping your chicken in peanut butter. That's incredible. And yeah, sugar-free syrup, like that's always the worst. Like people are like, prep is hard, whatever. I'm like, it's totally fine. I could live my life on prep. But when you take my like sugar-free stuff away, like when we cut condiments and I have to eat everything dry, like that's just a different that's a different type of prep right there. And we've been cutting it at like 10 weeks out. So I'm just like, I miss my syrup. It's the best thing ever.
There's like so many good, like all the GQ stuff and that too. It's like all really good now where you can get so many light condiments now.
Mm-hmm. I'm a condiment girl. Yeah, like even the Flavor Gang is like coming out with all of this like new stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But
can always make the food delicious.
I know.
What's your favorite body part to train?
I love legs and back because they're the hardest, but I also love delts. I don't know. That's hard. I mean, to suffer through training, I would have to say legs.
Yeah.
But for a good pump and like feel good, then I would say delts.
Yeah. Shoulder / sort of arm, my push day is like, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm huge.
Yeah. Like it's nice for a good pump and like it's euphoric, but in regards to like suffering and like feeling like you're dead after, I would say legs.
Yeah. What does a leg workout look like for you? What is your what's your split look like?
I do a bro split, which is funny because it's not really a lot of figure girls do push-pull legs off.
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, I've been doing it and it's working for the most part. So I do delts, I'll do arms, legs, and I kind of just rotate through it. But with legs, I try to do like the 2 leg days. I'll try and split it up. Like I'll try to focus more on quads or more on hams. My feedback was that I needed tighter hams. So with that, I'm trying to grow them so that obviously it's more prevalent.
Yeah.
So I've been hammering at them. But yeah, I love hack squat. I used to do barbell squat a lot, but I feel like I've realized that it's really not as beneficial, especially in terms of like longevity in the sport and like health reasons. I have a lot of back issues from like lifting heavy things for a long period of time. So Smith machine squat is awesome. I love hack squats, love the leg press, and then just smoking them on like quad extensions is always fun. So
yeah, absolutely. How old are you now?
24 next month.
When did you first step on stage?
I was a junior in college, so a while ago. It was 2018, I think.
2018.
I was 20. I was 19, yeah.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Very nice. What does the future look like for Amanda?
In regards to everything or? I don't know. People ask me, they're like, what are your goals with bodybuilding, with teaching? Like, I am very one day at a time type of person.
Yeah.
Because I used to be the person that like tried to think a million years ahead. And I realized that like you truly don't have control over what happens. So just taking it day by day. But I love my job. So just, this year I get tenure. That's exciting. I have my master's degree. So that's exciting. Like, those are boxes that are checked in regards to financial stuff. But in terms of bodybuilding, right now I'm in my off season. And then in January, we're taking a look at another prep to try and get my pro card and then kind of go from there with that. And then in terms of like overall lifestyle, just like taking it one day at a time and trying to stay happy at the end of the day. That's kind of like the hardest thing of all. You can have all these goals, but then at the end of the day, are they making you happy and are you healthy? Yeah. So that's why I try to make small goals so that the big ones are easily attainable.
Yeah. And finding the joy in every day.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you have been such a joy for my day.
Thanks. That's so much fun. I was like, please don't I was so worried that it was lost.
I know.
I'm like, that'd be awesome to just do it again because talking to you is fun. So
I think at this point in my life, my level of disappointment is very brief for things because I feel like it sounds so cliche, but things happen for a reason. And I would have been like, I guess it wasn't supposed to save. So we'll do it over.
Yeah. Everyone always is like, how are you so calm in like, even like with the littlest things or even the biggest things happen? Like the house could go on fire and I'm like, you know what? That was meant to happen. It's fine. And like, it sounds psychotic, but at the same time, like, what do you have the energy to stress over little things for?
It's so empowering when you don't react to stuff.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah. Because you have control over it. I mean, it's half the time, it's not even what happens. It's how you respond to it.
Yeah.
Like if you respond like it's the worst day of your life, then guess what? It's going to be the worst day of your life. But I always try to look at it like, I mean, even though it's kind of, it makes what you're going through minimalistic. Like I always think it could be worse. Like if something happens, I'm like, there's people out there dying right now. Like put yourself in check. So sometimes you need that. You gotta put your own foot on your own throat sometimes.
It's so true.
Yeah.
So Amanda, where can people find you? Follow your story. Instagram, best place?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep pretty active, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Instagram, Amanda Almodover 654. And I think that I have a Facebook, but that's really it. That's really all I'm on. I got rid of my Twitter. And so Instagram is probably the best way to find me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I'll be one of those people who's reaching out every once in a while. Ask if you're doing okay.
Perfect. I love it. We could be new best friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for listening and watching to this episode of the Women's Maximum Fitness Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at BuffCake22. You can follow the podcast at Women's Maximum Fitness. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all those things. And to remember that healthy looks different on everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.